So in terms of the gear that you're going to need when you come and do a bit of dry fly fishing on the rivers here in Tasmania, it's a very simple setup. So all we've got here is, I've got an 8-foot 4-weight rod here today. Even a 7-foot 3-weight around that sort of mark is fine. So anything around a 3 to 4 weight rod. So we're nice and light in the rig that we're using. So that's going to allow us just to land those flies nice and gently. And a little bit of a shorter rod as well, just allows less tangles and things up in the trees. So just allows us to really get in there into those tight little spots where fish will often be rising. So an 8-foot 4-weight rod or a 7-foot 3-weight rod, anything around that sort of mark is going to be ideal for what we're doing. So I've got that set up there, got a 4-weight reel, 4-weight weight forward floating fly line, and then all I've done is just attached a 9-foot 5X leader onto the end of that. So that's a good starting point. And then from there, what I'm going to want to do is come down a lot finer in the tippet. So I always carry both some 6 and 7X tippet. So I've got those both there. 6X, which is about 4 pound, is generally pretty good. That's going to be fine for most situations that you come across. But you may just get some fish that are just particularly fussy or hard to catch, and you might just need to go down to some 7X tippet and lengthen that leader out again just to get those fish that are particularly fussy just to take. So just keep that in mind, that you've got 6 and 7X leader and a 5X tippet there, and that's going to allow you to change your leader as you need. So 6X usually fine, but you may need to go to 7X as well. So just setting up our leader here for today now. So as I said, I've got my 9-foot 5X leader there. And then to start off with, I'm just going to attach about, I've got about another 4 feet or so there of 6X tippet. So I'm just going to attach that using the triple surgeon's knot. And that's going to give me about a leader of around sort of 13, 14 feet to start off with, which should be fine for most of the fish that we come across. So that's a good length of leader to get that fly far enough away from our fly line, and also not too long so that it becomes too hard to cast. So we still want it at a length that we can manage. Once you start to get out to that sort of 18, 20 feet range, can become quite difficult to cast a leader of that length. So you sort of want to set up with a leader that you can manage, making sure that you can still land that fly nice and straight with your leader all laying out nice and straight on the water. So that's pretty important too. So a leader of around that sort of anywhere from about 12 to 15 feet is fine. So I've got that 9-foot 5X leader coming down to about another 4 or 5 feet there of 6X tippet. We'll start off with that, and as I said, I can always add a little bit more 7X onto the end if I find that those fish are being particularly fussy and I want to go down even a little bit finer than that. So that's a really nice versatile leader setup there that we've got. So we've got our 9-foot 5X leader down to our 6X tippet, and I can then go even a little bit finer with some more 7X on the end of that too. So that's just a nice versatile rig that's going to allow us to change our leader tippet strengths and come down even finer if we need to throughout the day, which could be important on these sort of still brighter sort of days. The fish could be a little bit fussier, so we may want to change things with our leader as we go up the river. So just having a couple of different tippets on hand is going to allow us to do that and adjust that leader as we need to. So fly selection again for the dry fly fishing on the rivers here is pretty simple. So we've just got a few flies that we use, which are going to be pretty safe bets. So there's a couple of scenarios that you might come across here. You could find that the fish are feeding on really, really small insects that you can hardly even see on the water. So in that scenario, you really want a little bit of a range of small dry flies to cast. So we've got a few here that we use. My favourites are things like an F fly, which is a caddis imitation. We've got a little midge imitation, a parachute Adams, and probably the most effective fly that we use is a little flying ant pattern. So they're all tied in about a size 16, and they're going to imitate those really small insects that we do get a lot of here on the rivers, and the fish really like just sitting there in a little run, just sipping them down. So when you come across those fish that appear to be feeding on really small insects, these are the flies that you want, anything from a 16 to an 18. I like these ones because they still have some visible posts on the top as well, so you've got sort of orange and pinks and white sort of posts on the top of them. So even though they're a very small fly in terms of the fish seeing them, you can still see them quite easily too, which is important obviously to know when the fish is eating yours. So there's some good flies to have a look at and have in your box when you come to Tasmania to do a bit of dry fly fishing. The other situation that you might come across is that the fish are feeding on quite large terrestrial insects. So we get a lot of grasshoppers, blowflies, damselflies, things like that late summer and into autumn here in Tasmania. So you could get days where the fish are really aggressively feeding on those bigger terrestrial insects. So I've got a few of my favourite sort of hopper imitations there, and also a blue damselfly pattern's really good as well for those days where you have got fish that are coming up and chomping those big sort of terrestrial insects. In that scenario, you'll probably struggle to get them to eat something really small if they're honed in on the grasshoppers and the damselflies. That's what you want to be throwing at them. So you've sort of got 3 or 4 of each in your fly box there that you can turn to throughout the day, and that's going to really cover you off for anything that you find. So for today, we've got a fairly still day and it's sort of partly cloudy, pretty calm conditions, so I'm thinking that they're probably going to be feeding on more of those small type insects that we spoke about. So to start off with, I might just go with a little F-fly that is a pretty safe bet. Just a nice general sort of caddis imitation there. And again, we'll find a fish and present that to it, and if he doesn't take it, we can always just swap to one of the others, but generally a caddis imitation is a pretty safe way to start the day, and that first fish that you throw it in front of will tell you pretty quickly whether that's what they're after or not. So there we go, we've got our little F-fly there on the end to our 6X tippet there, 4 or 5 feet of that, our 9'5" X leader, and I've got my 8'4" weight floating line. Very simple setup, and that should do us pretty well for today. So some other things that you might need when you come and do some dry fly fishing here on the rivers is obviously a good vest or a good bag or something to keep all of those things that we've just spoken about, fly boxes, tippets, that sort of thing in there. Got all your floatants and nippers and things like that too. Good pair of waders. At this time of the year, through the summer and autumn period that we're practicing this technique, pretty dry sort of grass, and you also get a lot of blackberries and things like that around. So it's good to have some good protection there as you walk up the stream. Another really important piece of equipment is a good pair of polarized sunglasses. Again, we're going to be walking up the stream and trying to spot fish, so we really need a good pair of sunglasses to allow us to see into the water and spot those fish as they're sitting there in the run. So that's a really important piece of equipment. Other than that, you've got a good landing net, a hat, other things that you'd normally take fishing. So sun protection is also going to be really important at this time of the year. Get a lot of warm days and the UV is going to be really high, so you want a good hat, plenty of sunscreen. Long sleeve tops are really good, so I've got a nice light fishing top here. So all of those things for your sun protection is going to be really important as well. Just give you a more comfortable day on the water, and if you're going to be out for a few days in a row, you're going to be a lot more comfortable through this time of the year.